This video is about Timothy Ballard and the Hollywood movie called Sound of Freedom that is supposedly based off his story, but I will be uncovering the connections that Timothy Ballard has, and I'll be talking about some of the actors, cast, and the director, producer of this film. So, Sound of Freedom, the incredible true story, yeah, if you say so, of a former government agent turned vigilante who embarks on a dangerous mission to rescue hundreds of children from this particular nefarious group of individuals. And when talking about this particular subject, I have to use vague language in order to keep this video on YouTube, so I apologize for that. So the director, Alejandro Monteverde, and then you have Rod Barr as the writer, and then you have some of the stars, Jim Caviezel, Mira Sorvino, Kurt Fuller, and then you as well have this particular individual, Eduardo, who is also the film's producer as well as playing a part as an actor in the film. So, Mira Sorvino, interestingly enough, she's also a UN ambassador, a UN Goodwill ambassador, and UNODC stands for United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. And then we see as well Eduardo over here, the film's producer and an actor in the film, ends up asking Pope Francis for his prayers so that he can apparently eradicate this particular issue that the Vatican actually plays a role in personally. So all roads lead through Rome, 1, and 2, this is just total nonsense right over here and should tell you everything you need to know, especially when dealing with the land of Hollyweird here with Jim Caviezel as well, who got to spend some time with the Pope. Jim Caviezel is part of the old Hollyweird crew, and the Hollyweird actors are just other actors on the world stage, just like politicians and other prominent public figures, the media, and that sort of a thing. So, here we have Chris Vanden Boss of Police on Guard for Thee, which I've called out that particular organization. I'll leave a link for that video that I've done already on them. But Chris Vanden Boss says that Jim Caviezel apparently got a hold of him and is willing to work with the organization Police on Guard for Thee to combat the particular issue that Sound of Freedom is about. And as well, he thanks Mel Gibson and Tim Ballard for their efforts. Now, I don't know a whole lot about Mel Gibson, but you all know how I feel about Hollyweird. And Tim Ballard in particular as well, we can see that he is basically a con man, which we will get to eventually. I'll speak about him, but finishing speaking about the movie, you have Neil Harmon, who helped co-found Angel Studios, and he's their CEO. This is the studio that is putting out the film Sound of Freedom. And as well, he worked for a company called Aura Bush Inc., and he is a co-founder of an advertising agency called the Harmon Brothers, and he has a master's degree from Brigham Young University in instructional psychology and technology, and an undergraduate degree from the same place in American studies. So, it says here the purpose of this film is to put a spotlight on the global movement to end this particular nefarious activity revolving around minors by successfully distributing this film to a worldwide audience. I don't understand exactly how action thriller films are supposed to highlight a problem going on, especially if you are taking a renowned con man who exploits people like Timothy Ballard and giving him a false story, only further cementing lies that are told, and creating a huge uprising of Hopium, to say the least. You are not doing any good for anybody, of course, but again, we are in the land of Hollyweird here. So, Eduardo is a producer, actor, businessman, and philanthropist born in Mexico, and he got his start in the entertainment career being part of a Mexican pop group called Cairo, and he gained international recognition for lead role in the 2006 film called Bella, and he co-founded Metanoia Films, and he's known for his humanitarian work for this non-profit organization with a Spanish title that I cannot pronounce. And he's the producer of Sound of Freedom, like I was saying. And then you have Jim Caviezel over here, and now he's known for playing Edmund in remake of Count of Monte Cristo. He was Jesus Christ in Mel Gibson's film Passion of the Christ, and he's been in quite a few other films. And as well, upon learning about Operation Underground Railroad, he was apparently moved and passionate about spreading the message and helping in this particular nefarious and disgusting activity. Alejandro Monteverde is the film's director, and he is as well Mexican, just like the producer, and he is known for his work as director, writer, and producer of the film Bella, which the producer Eduardo was also in doing the leading role, which is interesting. So they worked together before. And Monteverde began his film career with a short film called The Last Goodbye, and as well he has done work through a non-profit organization called Hope for Children, and as well he's been very vocal about his Catholic beliefs, interestingly enough. So all roads once again lead through Rome. And interestingly enough, too, we're going to be talking about the Mormons a little bit in this video, but we'll get to that. So, because we'll see how they're connected to Tim Ballard. So, the 135-minute feature film, Sound of Freedom, stars Jim Caviezel, who plays Tim Ballard, a former federal agent who discovers his life work after encountering a young boy and his sister who were kidnapped in Honduras by these particular nefarious individuals through subterfuge. And the film shows the duplicitous methods used by these nefarious individuals to lure and kidnap children, reflecting Ballard's own experiences dealing with them as a federal agent, apparently, and later on his own, which later became known as Operation Underground Railroad. So, what is Operation Underground Railroad? It says that we lead the fight against this particular nefarious activity around the globe, and our work has no boundaries. We go to the darkest corners of the world to assist law enforcement in rescuing children and ensure ongoing aftercare. Not at all, which we will actually be very specifically talking about the aftercare, which lacks. We provide critical resources to law enforcement and preventative efforts that benefit at-risk children worldwide. Again, not at all, which we'll cover. So this is Timothy Ballard over here. It says he spent more than a decade working as a special agent for the Department of Homeland Security, where he was assigned to the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force and deployed as an undercover operative for this particular team. And he has worked in that role and since in every type of case in the fight to dismantle these particular rings. And he's worked in the U.S. and in multiple foreign countries to infiltrate those organizations. He successfully dismantled dozens of these organizations and rescued children from these particular nefarious activities, supposedly, which again we'll cover. And while working for the government, he saw how much more is needed in the fight against this particular nefarious activity across the world. And in 2013, he and a team of former government operatives left the security of their careers to accomplish the work of rescuing children as a private foundation, Operation Underground Railroad. And at OUR, Tim has created a team that can work in any jurisdiction and in conjunction with law enforcement to rescue children directly. The team exists today and operates all over the world. Yes, unfortunately, they do. So, interestingly enough, I was actually going to have a Twitter link, but for some reason I'm having a problem accessing Twitter, or perhaps they have removed the information that has to do with Tim Ballard, that has to do with different investigations taking place against them, and as well, he claims to have a partnership with American Airlines, and American Airlines refuted that, said that's not the case. So, therefore, Operation Underground Railroad are basically lying. So, as well, we can see here as well that this particular thing called the Liberty Conference, you can see some probably familiar faces to an American audience, and I'm Canadian, so I don't know very much about a lot of these people, but you have General Flynn, Tim Ballard, and in particular, I want to draw people's eyes to Artur Pawlowski over here, just because he's a Canadian Polish pastor that has been involved in politics in an Alberta separatist party, and as well, he has been a part of the fake staged arrests that literally distract people and insinuate fear porn, and as well, he is quite famous for police apparently coming into his church during the lockdowns, and all Artur Pawlowski did to get rid of them is shouted, "Out, you Nazis!" And apparently calling them all Nazis just made them magically leave. So never have I ever had an encounter like that with police, where you just literally tell them off or call them Nazis and they just leave. Things don't work that simply, bud. So at this very moment, many are angered and outraged that OUR had another record-breaking year, raking in over $47 million. Angry because of the laundry list of allegations against Ballard and OUR officials. Yeah, no doubt. It was OUR President of Operations John Lines and Washington State Patrol Detective Carlo Rodriguez, the head of the Missing and Exploited Children Task Force, that made OUR famous with Operation Net Nanny. But as the facade crumbled once they became a magnet for controversy, it was revealed that OUR's involvement was limited to $50,000 in annual donations for 5 years and nothing else. Worse, they were embarrassingly thirsty for credit in Net Nanny's questionable arrest to pander for donations. A subsequent lawsuit against OUR involving their role in Net Nanny cost them $100,000. And it's important to note that Tim Ballard and OUR were riding high in 2020 with impunity. In the public sphere, they were legitimate, no one questioned their claims, and there was not a single critic. This was the beginning of the end. Not a single rescued survivor or family speaking on their behalf either. So, just before we go a little bit more forward into that article, I want to just cover what Net Nanny is. So it says it's a proactive sting operation, if you say so. Now, it uses social media, dating apps, and stuff like that, like OkCupid, Tinder, Meet Me, Skip the Games, Plenty of Fish, that sort of a thing. And it catfishes random individuals, meaning a fake profile, essentially. A fake picture, at the very least. So it catfishes random individuals, not a specific target or potential predator, who are looking for dates or hookups on these adult websites. Now, the operation is not trying to infiltrate any kind of ongoing criminal activity. Law enforcement conducts several general scenarios or schemes. 1, law enforcement pretends to be a teenager, 13 years old. Or 2, law enforcement officers pretend to be a mother, suggesting the unsuspecting citizen teach her children about this particular subject, as her father did with her. Now, in these cases, a bait and switch will occur. The teen will change her age, and the mom will direct the conversation from her to the children. Photos of actual law enforcement officers may be used to match that of a child, but most of the time, law enforcement officers use an image of an older person, such as 16 years old or older, and they may disguise the image to further deceive the other party. So it's basically almost like entrapment is what I'm seeing there. So, sole rescued survivor Tim Ballard, touted publicly as OUR poster child Liliana, including selling merchandise supposedly designed by her, turned out to be a total fabrication. And OUR had no involvement in her rescue nor aftercare, which didn't stop Tim Ballard from peddling her story. Their high-risk rescue of her and fabricating her quote-unquote aftercare costs before Congress and during an embarrassing White House meeting. And she's not the only poster child of this organization as well. So behind the scenes, OUR was in shambles, and in as early as 2015, the true story behind OUR's foundings as a reality TV show, not divine inspiration as perpetrated by Tim Ballard and the LDS Church today, otherwise known as the Mormons, who also falsified his ties to the CIA, was common knowledge. I'm unsure about the falsified ties to the CIA, if I'm honest with you. And there is going to be another video in future where I do talk about Timothy Ballard. There's a lot to cover, and only so much I can do in the course of one video. So, yeah, but through years of lying, litigation, threatening witnesses, and carefully crafting a public image, had buried the truth behind OUR's founding, and in 2020, the suppressed interviews of Darren Fletcher and Chet Thomas, detailing the real story behind the founding of the abolitionists as it happened, reemerged once Lynn Packer and the author of this article started talking, and they began republishing Packer's efforts. So, I'm going to move forward to speaking a little bit further on this issue, and we'll eventually be talking about the Mormons, and a little bit basically also appears to be connected to Glenn Beck, who has a very Alex Jones type of show, to say the least. So, all in all, Operation Underground Railroad and the Covenant, it says here that an apostle of the Mormon Church could get drawn into the Utah criminal organization. An apostle of the Mormon Church could get drawn into a Utah criminal investigation conducted by Davis County Attorney Troy Rawlings. Russell Ballard, president of the LDS Church's Quorum of the 12 Apostles, has both spiritual and alleged financial ties to the Utah nonprofit on Operation Underground Railroad. The criminal probe is likely centered on Tim Ballard, the charity's fame-obsessed founder. Russell Ballard shares with Tim Ballard, they are not related, a belief in the so-called covenant, and the covenant is a religious hypothesis that's embedded in the DNA of the organization established to rescue child slaves from these particular nefarious individuals. And interestingly enough, so Mormonism, just like the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Seventh-day Adventists, which are, I guess, Christian denominations, as they say, founded in the 1800s, are all basically founded by different Freemasons, and Joseph Smith is the founder of Mormonism, another Freemason. So, this right here is an interesting story, to say the least here, but basically what happens is Meg Conley is the author of this article. She is a Mormon woman who had a quote-unquote mommy blog, and she was contacted suddenly in summer of 2014 by Tim Ballard, who wanted her to document a sting that was taking place, that was planned for the Dominican Republic, and that he'd been called to his work by God. Tim was intent to pitch a TV series about his efforts to deal with this particular type of crisis, and they needed footage, so the production company is Fletcher Entertainment, with owners Darren Fletcher and Chet Thomas, and a documentary called The Abolitionist was created, which I had alluded to. So this is the Abolitionist documentary, and we see as well, yes, Fletcher Entertainment, the owners are Darren Fletcher and Chet Thomas. So basically what happens here is Meg Conley, what's her name again? Sorry, excuse me. It is Meg Conley. She was basically a part of Tim Ballard's team, and Tim Ballard had coordinated with the local authorities in the Dominican Republic, who were too overwhelmed or ill-equipped to deal with this work on their own. So members of the OUR jump team found people who were involved in the particular crisis with children, and they set up a date to quote-unquote party with however many children were going to be provided. The more the better. The authorities were told where and when the party was happening, and when they arrived, the girls would be sent outside where Meg would be with them. And while Ballard and the nefarious individuals would stay inside, so the police planned to wait outside until the OUR team had undercover footage of a trafficker accepting cash. And after the cash exchanged hands, Ballard gave a signal and the authorities would rush into the house to make arrests. And they gave the signal, and so once he gave the signal, the raid started. And so Meg ended up running to the back door. She was supposed to be outside, by the way, and Tim Ballard basically had instructed her to be inside, so him breaking his word. She ran to the back door where she was confronted by a local police officer with a gun who told her to get to the floor, and the cameras were rolling for this. So then moving forward, it says Operation Underground Railroad is essentially famous for its sting operations, and it had a fundraiser in 2015 where basically what happens is a Silicon Valley man funded a sting with $40,000 and watched it happen in real time. And with the help of OUR, basically a rich person can become a vigilante hero for the day. The living room transformed into a personal situation room for those who can't afford the situation room. Ballard carries the drama with him to every interview and fundraiser. That drama and real desire to save the children moves a lot of donors, whether or not it's accurate. So, very true. Basically, what happens is the TV show never got picked up, but Operation Underground Railroad made a video of the raid that happened, and it's apparently still on the YouTube channel. And you can see a terrified housekeeper open the door to the man with a gun, telling Meg Conley to lay on the ground while the police pace around her. And the video ends with the line, quote unquote, 26 victims liberated, 8 traffickers arrested. And she was told that 2 of the children had been trafficked for the first time that day, and it didn't seem to occur to anyone that OUR may have created a demand. So basically after the sting, she asked people on the jump team where the 26 children were taken, and she was only given vague answers, not a real answer, of course. And aftercare wasn't their focus. So in 2014, after OUR's first operation with the Dominican Republic, a local organization called National Council for Children and Adolescents quickly discovered it didn't have the capacity to handle the 26 children, and they were released in less than a week. So basically, it's like you keep a cycle going by setting up this fake sting on camera, if you will, and you don't have the resources to deal with the children, so basically you send them to said authorities that either bring them through the system, or in this particular case, the system can't deal with them, not that the system would be of any help, and they're just put through the exact same problems once again and are likely never seen or heard from again. So despicable, to say the least, and that is a real understatement. This subject actually makes me really angry, to say the least, but anyway, moving forward. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the Mormon Church here. So what happens here is June 17th, 2021, Liza Adams gave a deposition in a lawsuit against the Mormon Church, and she said the church knew for years that her husband was abusing their eldest daughter, and it turned out Paul Adams is his name, by the way, who is a U.S. Border Patrol employee. He was abusing his daughters, and that's a picture of Paul Adams over there. And so he ended up confessing to Bishop John Herod what he was doing. So basically what happens is the Mormon Church has a system where they direct you to, there's a specific abuse line for the Mormon Church, and what happens is they say to reporters in a video that is posted in this particular link here that it's only for the bishops or stake presidents, not for those in general membership. So they're clearly trying to cover for their own and their own public image. Now, also as well, what happens is with the abuse line, with the abuse helpline, what happens is when the bishops call the abuse helpline, they get a hold of Curtin McConkie Law Firm, who tells the bishops not to report the crime. And this over here is Peter Schofield, and documents of the pretrial testimony reveal that Peter Schofield was consulted in the particular Paul Adams case that I was talking about back in 2010, and according to legal filings, Schofield has been associated with the Church of Latter-day Saints helpline, otherwise known as the Mormons. So Peter Schofield is an attorney for both Tim Ballard and his nonprofit Operation Underground Railroad, and Ballard and OUR retained Peter Schofield back in January of 2020 in an effort to intimidate and silence American Crime Journal, which is this particular website here. And as well, since then, both Lynn Packer and the author of this article have exchanged dozens of emails with Schofield and his secretary for questions and for comment on both reports and the criminal investigations into both Ballard and OUR. And they also asked if donor money was donated to the Mormon Church and various families. Basically, what happens is American Crime Journal, ended up asking Tim Ballard if any of the donation money was given to the Mormon Church, and they declined to answer. So that is a subject again for further investigation in a future video. But all in all, I just want to bring up this particular issue because the movie Sound of Freedom is coming out very shortly, and there are various people supporting it. Meanwhile, they don't realize that Timothy Ballard is just basically creating an almost like recycling system, if you will, where children are the product that's being recycled, and there is no thought in the regard of aftercare. And essentially, again, either children are put through a very corrupt system, or the system has no means to deal with them, being that the particular system, same Dominican Republic, is economically impoverished, and so as a result, children just end up back on the streets or never seen or heard from again. So Tim Ballard loves the cameras, and that's really all I gotta say about him in particular. So thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it, and I just want to say, most importantly, just on a personal note, that my two priorities of this channel, and again with this video, I guess, is one, I don't want people to be conned or exploited if I can help it, so that's why I make these videos. And two, I want to as well uncover the shadow players involved in what's going on, but that's second priority to making sure people are not conned or exploited. So thanks for the support and love, everybody. Feel free to ask questions, comment, and share the video. Thanks for watching.